the roar of the helicopter blades as we lifted over Hawaii's tropical and tranquil cliffs. In that moment, I just realized I have arrived in paradise. The beauty of the island was not only above water, but also underwater, with manta rays swishing past your face by just an inch. And then you start asking yourself, can this get even any better? During summer break, as my tropical trip to the Hawaiian Islands slowly came to an end, I sat by the beach with the Pacific wind breezing past my face, reflecting on all the moments I was lucky enough to experience. Scuba diving, the helicopter tour, and so much more. But then, a very big question rose to me. Was it only benefiting from nature? Or was it also ensuring that nature will live even longer so that people like me, tourists, would be able to see this in the next 10 years? This question kept me awake for the whole flight back. And to be honest, I still don't really have an answer. The helicopter flight gave me incredible views, which I'll never forget. But what about the carbon emissions I was responsible for? I did the math, and a 55-minute helicopter flight is equal to about 490 kilograms of carbon emissions being released into the atmosphere. To put it into perspective, this is about a 2,000-kilometer car ride or 60,000 smartphones being charged at once. So in simpler words, the 55 minutes, which felt like the time of my life, were responsible for so much more. With this in mind, I didn't really know my perspective on this form of tourism. I didn't want people missing out on these breathtaking views either, but I didn't want nature to suffer from it. Then there was scuba diving. Diving with manta rays felt truly sensational. In that moment, I couldn't really believe that this was the world we live in daily. Yet, even this had its small hidden impacts. For example, when I was diving, I may have hit 1 or 2 corals by accident. At first, I didn't realize how long it takes for a single coral to recover. But from my single careless kick, a coral would now have to recover 10 to 20 years in order to be in healthy conditions again. And then there was transportation around the islands. Driving gave us the freedom of exploring hidden beaches and small towns at our own pace. But every car matters. Don't get me wrong, cars are important for getting around, but they're also after impacts. Congested roads, parking lots filling up quickly, and air quality suffering. But people might just say, just get an electric car then. But outside of bigger towns, there barely is any charging infrastructure, which forces everyone to drive gas cars. So, now that I've highlighted these 3 issues to you, are there any real solutions? Yes, there are. How can we ensure that people are still able to see the breathtaking views from the air in the future? Currently, helicopter companies are developing electrical helicopters, but they're most likely not entering service for another decade or so. But in the meanwhile, helicopters could use sustainable aviation fuel, short for SAF, reducing emissions over time. But even until then, tour companies could charge a little extra fee for restoration and sustainable development projects. How about scuba diving though? The answer is not to just fully stop diving, but rather to dive responsibly and always remember that you're visiting another fish's home. Small choices like using reef-safe sunscreen can prevent toxic chemicals from bleaching the corals. If each of one treats diving as a responsibility and not only as an adventure, diving can become more than just a memory. It can become a way of protecting the blue, pristine Pacific Ocean. Then there is transportation around the islands. The most obvious answer is to just invest into local infrastructure for more electric charging stations to be built. But what about if we just rethink transportation completely? Shuttle buses connecting one trendy spot to the other one can ensure that families don't have to drive individually to each spot. And for smaller routes, people could even use e-bikes or bikes. And currently, communities are experimenting with ride-sharing platforms, drastically reducing the number of cars on the road. Now, looking back on our summer in Hawaii, the beauty was everywhere. from the colorful underwater world to the breathtaking cliffs. But all had a hidden message, which I haven't seen at first. But that is exactly the point. We shouldn't take the beauty of nature as granted. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this talk today, is to always remember that you solely have the decision and power to decide how our Earth is going to turn out in the next decade.